Welcome to CharmedPersons. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday. Immediately, I just want to say, Bees, renewing your subscription. You're the best. Thank you so much. 4-month streak for the Bee, so thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. I hope you had a good weekend so far. This is not a normal session. We are going to be doing a talkback of the first 28, 29 episodes, Arc 1 of Campaign 3. So we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So let me quickly go through announcements. Tomorrow, yes, at 7:30 p.m. Central, we have the next episode of Talk With Me. Eric's thinking if he remembers the title.
I'm trying to come up with one right now. It's our biggest, it's legitimately our biggest show ever. It's huge. We're pulling out all the stops.
I don't believe if you're not presenting from a bouncy house, I don't believe it.
How did you know?
How did you
and then this coming Thursday is the next session of Monster Hearts. Special guest is going to be returning?
Yeah.
Mayumi? Wait, Mayumi?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
some reason, I second guess myself. Special guest Mayumi is going to be joining us again, so please come watch that. They've been a lot of fun. Really fit into the feralness of Monster Hearts. So come watch that. And then, not a week from today, but on the 14th of October. The next Monday at 7 p.m. Central, or 6 p.m. Central, we will be having the next Campaign 3 session. So that is when we're having the next Campaign 3 session. You can be reminded of all of this and stay up to date if you follow us at CharmedPersons on Instagram and TikTok. So please do so. And that's it for announcements. So let's
join
jump
the Discord.
Damn it! Join the Discord. Thank you, B. Thank you, Eric. Much appreciated. So we will definitely be taking some audience questions. So get those questions ready in the chat. But first, let's start off with a pretty simple question, and I'm just going to go down the line here of the people that I see. Actually, I'll do it in stream order. So Michael, you're going to be first. Michael, why did you pick Danny in his story? And also, why did you pick Air Genasi Monk? Why did you make the narrative choices and the mechanical choices that you made for this character?
So I think I've spoken about this before, but I've had Danny made like in D&D Beyond since 2020, I think. At least a version of him. And I was really interested from a narrative standpoint of like, well, what happens after someone's hero's journey is complete? So that was always the thing of like someone starting off as one class and then having basically like a level set to 0 and then going to do a totally different class. And it just so happened that the cleric stats can kind of match up with monk stats, weirdly enough, even though they're so different because they're both dex and wisdom focused. So that was pretty much the inspiration behind like his backstory and stuff. And then in terms of the race and class, there's a one shot from Critical Role where Laura Bailey plays an Air Genasi Monk, and I went, cool, I'll follow anything that Laura Bailey does. Great.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a great
that's pretty much that.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Also, want to say hi to Matt in the chat.
Matt in the chat.
We see Schwarm out there. Our Matt, yes.
Whoa.
Awesome. So yeah, I definitely knew that you had Danny for a while. I'm sure it was relieving to finally get to play him. 3 years later, I guess.
I had art made of Danny before I ever got to play Danny.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Next on the stream order is Emily. Emily, why Rowina?
So I started with the idea of playing a sorcerer because I've never played a sorcerer before. And I mean, I guess from a basic level of her story, I was kind of just inspired by like the fact that sorcerers have this innate ability and like, what does it look like when you have this innate ability, especially given the world that you gave us where like magic isn't always, acceptable. What does that look like being kind of other in that way? And I went from there. The whole backstory with her being raised by Linda is sort of just like, I like playing druids. Linda is sort of an older version of a character that I would already play. So like, you know, I had to tie that in some way and give her that kind of nature-esque vibe. And then, I mean, I love tieflings. I'm a true bisexual stereotype. I love and honestly, originally Rowina was gonna be red. I was gonna do like a red tiefling with black horns, like very classic, like devil kind of vibe. But Midjourney couldn't handle that. And then I started making other versions, and as soon as I made a green tiefling, I was like, oh, that's who she is.
That's awesome.
So she's kind of Elphaba. She's kind of, you know, just like witchy. Comes from all that like witchy shit that I love. And yeah, I like really went with the shadow magic thing and what does it look like if you have this dark magic that you just can't control yet.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I love the narrative choices that you've made for Rowena as far as how her magic looks. I think it's really cool. And I love how everybody's done that. Anytime magic has been used, it's a very different type of magic for every person, which has been very fun. Another magic user that we have, but mainly a tank, Eric. Oliver, what's going on with him? Why'd you make Oliver?
Well, cleric, I always never wanted to be a cleric. I don't really know why. It was one of the classes that I really hadn't played. I think it was like the only class that I hadn't played.
You wanted to be a cleric for Strahd, right?
Yeah, I wanted to be a cleric for Strahd, but then Petra, Sophia's character, was already a cleric. But I did, because I was a bard last campaign, so I knew I wanted to be more upfront, so I tried to find a cleric subclass that could handle that, which was the Forge cleric.
Yeah.
As far as the backstory, I have also never really done the like you don't remember your backstory part, the classic D&D character trope. So I decided to include a little bit of that in there. And then the truth thing was inspired by a couple books that I was reading at the time. One written by Brian Schmidt. Shout out Brian Schmidt.
Hey,
Steve. Which actually the name Oliver Burroughs is just a character in his book that he wrote.
no way! Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
And his dad got both the names from Brian Schmidt's book.
Oh, amazing! Shout out Schmidt.
Nice.
Yeah. And his book is the truth. The truth box. It has to deal with the truth and everything. So that's partially where I got that from.
Plug.
Yeah. Shout out Brian Schmidt. I think that's. And I always like to include like an enemy with all my characters, like somebody that's out there. That's always fun. So that's where Damien came from.
Yeah. Damien. I don't know if everybody knew that. Damien was a Eric creation, not a me creation.
No way.
What?
Eric created Damien, and then
You did this to us?
Well, I did a little bit of it. Zach took it and ran with it, so don't blame it all on me.
All right. Kelsey, talk to us about Aeliana, and then talk to us about the story first, but then dive into this homebrew class that you've created.
Yes. Yeah, so the story, I wanted to play a bard because I'd never played a bard before. So I wanted to play a class I'd never played, so I picked bard. And the story really was me challenging myself to, because we had all come in saying it was going to be a grounded campaign, we want to be very serious. And the idea of the tragic backstory always is like, my parents are dead, or, you know, everyone was taken from me. And I wanted to do it differently, and like I wanted her to have a really good childhood. I wanted her to grow up extremely happy, and then like what caused her to lose that, and how is that the tragedy for her. So I was trying to twist it a little bit, and then it just sort of came. And actually I had the like masquerading as an accountant piece first. That was like the first thing, and then everything else why is she an accountant now, what happened, how did she get. So
that's so awesome that you chose accountant first. Out of everything in
I was
Aeliana's
like,
story,
oh,
you're like, she's masquerading as an accountant.
Like she's hiding, right?
I love it.
Part of
Where would
herself.
somebody hide?
Yeah, and I was like, and it ended up becoming so much a part of the story, like as we played it out, because it was like, you know, she was repressing that creative energy because of the you know, dichotomy between that. But the homebrew, I've never homebrewed anything before. Seriously, like not for playing it myself. It was always as like a DM. So I was interested to try it, and I figured I also was very interested in trying to play a bard that wasn't charismatic in the way that bards normally are. So I thought to use Zach always asking what magic looks like. So all of these pieces come together, and I was like, what if she's a painter? And like, how would that look, and how would that feel, and how would that give her the opportunity to be super awkward, like interpersonally, but still have this charisma that is the trait, but not really. So I was trying to like take everything and just twist it like that. But
I love it. I think that Aeliana's painting magic has led to some of my favorite descriptions of spells being cast that I've seen.
Yeah, and then last piece that just is a little thing. If the name also, Aeliana means sun or light, and Avarna means darkness or obstructed. So it's like a.
In what language?
Balance. Avarna is Sanskrit.
Ooh.
And Aeliana is Roman.
That's really cool. I love that. That's awesome. And last but not least, Angie, let's hear about our guy. Let's hear about Emory.
He's just a guy.
Yeah.
So my first ever class was a rogue, so I am revisiting playing a rogue in a longer campaign, and it's been very fun. I feel very very much more settled in being a rogue this time.
Yes.
But Emory, I actually had started building a wizard for this campaign, and then back before the campaign even started, I got COVID and was like bedridden and started rewatching Arcane, and was like, man, this like kind of underbelly, dirty, dark world is something very opposite of what I played in campaign 2, which was, you know, a very good, like almost lawful character. So it was like, what if I went in a little, and it's rogue underbelly, obviously had to happen. And then I feel like kind of in similarity to Eric and Kelsey, but like mashed together, this whole idea of like not knowing where you came from, but also ultimately like having this upbringing that you are very connected to, like even though the orphanage is very bad and like it was not a great place, like Emory started there, and that's like how they built themselves, and so they do have a connection and a love for their upbringing, and in a way that makes them not necessarily want to chase like their origin. But it kind of just steamrolled from there, and honestly, this is the character that I knew the least of before going into. I kind of just was like, whatever, let's go. And that kind of turned into Emory being like, whatever, let's go.
I love it. I think that's great. Do you want to talk at all? Well, no.
I do want to talk at all.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I don't really have a character to talk about, but I pulled up our session 0 notes, and I kind of wanted to talk about, just so the audience knows, kind of what we talked about was going to happen. What I remember is us talking about how, yes, we wanted a much more serious and grounded campaign than we've had before, while obviously, I mean, you've seen our episodes still allowing the goofy stuff to happen. What I've always told my players is I would much rather you play grounded characters that make silly decisions than silly characters. And I think that that's been accomplished 10 times over. So we talked about that. We talked about how we wanted there to be some mysteries and some time jumps and some slow burn type things. And so here, I'll read a list here. We said that we wanted to have a ball or a big event.
Yes,
I think we can check that one off the list. More to come, I'm sure. I'm sure that's not going to be our only.
Well, that first one was so lighthearted and fun.
Yeah.
I do owe you. I owe you a more. I owe you a more happy ball.
There's
for
never
sure.
been a ball in the history of D&D that was not attacked by someone.
I mean,
right?
how can I resist?
Yeah,
How can I
you
resist?
can't.
Oh, no.
You know?
I was like still surprised though. I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what?
Yeah. Feel the stakes. I think the stakes have been definitely felt. I think that first fight against Vox was a big.
Were
big
you when he
eye-opening
knocked
moment.
all of us unconscious?
Yeah.
In one round.
Yeah,
Not
big
me.
eye-opening moment. Yeah,
Not you.
Aeliana,
Yeah.
literally,
Saved.
Aeliana like crawling around
In the
like
dark.
and just
Drunk.
like I
Dragging
mean,
Danny up the stairs, I think I remember.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Gameplay rhythm breakup, which I feel like's been good. Puzzles and traps we haven't had as much of. But we had some.
We had that full session where we were,
where you jumped
like,
into the
Love
device.
that session.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and even just little bits of like the checks that we needed to make to cross the bridge to get into the House of Balance. Like
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
time getting
Yeah.
in there, and like wasn't there like someone almost didn't make it?
Yeah, I
and-
almost didn't make it.
Yeah, that was another thing that was listed: skill challenges, and
Uh-huh.
just
Good.
having you use some of your other stuff. I still think we can get in more
Do
of
more of
those
that,
too.
yeah.
More encounters per day. I still struggle with that as a DM. It's been better.
Then
I
you
think
get
it's
into
I think it's fine.
Then you get into Strahd where we have 6 months in one day.
Literally, so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
time.
Shout out, man.
Yeah.
Shout out Matt.
But yeah, rolling for travel we've done.
That's been really
slow
good.
burn stuff, exploring the world, mystery.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like we had a lot of that. So that was kind of what we came into
That's
with
so cool
campaign
to check
3.
back and be like, we did it.
Yeah. That's what we
Our
came back
game
into.
journal.
A party is just a monologue chance for the villain. That's very true. Okay, so the next question I want to ask you, and this one's going to be kind of open-ended, is what moments so far in campaign 3 have stuck out to you? When I ask you that question, what's some moments that kind of come to your mind? Stuff that you want to like say, like, oh,
boy.
remember this?
I think
Go.
Sorry, I think it's funny just to think about like the first time it was even suggested that Emory and Rowina might be siblings. So like, what?
Yeah.
No. Like, come
You're
on.
like, wait a minute.
I'll
It
speak
was
to
like,
that
but
real.
maybe.
I'll speak to that real quick because I, no joke, hand to God, had already decided that was something that I wanted to do.
What?
And Michael just fucking cold clocked it and just guessed it out of nowhere. And because he cold clocked it, I was like, oh, I can't do it now. I gotta revert, especially because you then said Zach just wants them not to be able to get together romantically. And I was like, well, now that's what people are gonna think. But it was such a good. I also wanted to reward Michael for just like cold clocking that, so I ended up keeping it. But yeah, that was something that I had the idea of. I initially had the idea of Rowina was younger or older than she thought, and Emory was younger than he thought, and they kind of met in the middle. But then I kind of liked the trauma of like Emory was literally lied to about their age just to like get them out on the street earlier.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to play. I mean, I've played a twin 2 campaigns in a row now. It's funny to play the difference between, especially as a person who doesn't actually have any siblings at all.
Yeah.
To play like a twin, like a pair of siblings that are really connected and have lived their whole life together and like are ride or die, to this unique relationship that is twins and it is siblings, but like we just met each other. And
Yeah.
so
I love that.
slowly having these RP moments that are like, oh, we are twins. But then there's times when we like don't even really talk for a whole session. It's interesting.
B says twins are actually so excellent to play in my experience too. I'm
What
sure it's
about
a lot of fun.
triplets? Do you like triplets?
Yeah, B, do you like
Because
triplets?
do we have something for you?
I exclusively play twins and triplets now. So keep that in mind if you ask me to be a part of something.
Yeah, I do. B says. All right. What are some other moments? Michael, you said you had something that you wanted to.
Oh, the first one I think that really comes to mind of like when I really felt like we were stepping into this campaign on our own was when we actually did fight Vox. Was his name?
Vox.
The
Fox.
Vox in the Coliseum where we beat
Yeah.
the Chimera
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
beat him. That was I think like that and like having I don't know, it felt so clear in my head as like what that moment looked like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That like that is kind of one of the first things that pops out to me.
Yeah, that was a great moment. That was a really rewarding moment for you guys. That was cool.
I feel like the failures stick out to me because
Uh-huh.
I've never been in a campaign where we're embracing it. Like this is really fun and really powerful, and it makes me care so much more because like we can actually fail and there are consequences for that. And I just think
Mhm.
back always to when we went to the pub. And we were like, we're gonna go have a drink because we really
Yeah,
are
yeah.
today. And then we forgot that we were gonna stake out the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Honestly,
wake up the next morning and then we hear
Forgot
the
about that.
sirens and we're like,
Mhm.
oh no! It was like that was
And
like
a
the first
character
big
in
fail.
in Oliver's backstory died.
Yeah.
Died.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that actually there
No,
were
they're alive.
consequences and we really
Oh no, sorry, severely injured. Yeah, they're in the
Yeah,
hospital.
haven't checked with them since then. I should
Yeah,
probably
no,
check
we
them,
haven't
actually.
even.
Been a year now.
could be dead. But
You could have
anyways,
done something
yeah.
in the 6 months.
Yeah. I'm not gonna
That's-
expect you to remember everything the actual person would remember. I will allow some
Mhm.
retconning.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that
I love
like,
that. That's great. That makes me feel good
big
because
fail.
I think, to be honest, speaking as a DM, it's scary to do that because
Oh my God, terrifying, yeah.
The worst thing that you can do as a DM is take fun away from your players.
Mhm.
And so I'm just very thankful that I have a party who understand that there is fun in failure, and that having a campaign where you're just badasses and succeed at everything the entire time is fun at the surface level, but it doesn't hit you. Like I think like Kelsey said, like the failures allow you to care more. It allows
my
you to
God,
like
yeah.
invest yourself more. So I'm glad that you guys feel that way. Or at least Kelsey does.
Second.
I'm the only one.
Any as we're continuing this, any questions in the chat? If you have any questions in the chat for what you've seen so far in campaign 3, or what you want, or a moment that sticks out to you that you would like to kind of dive into, and if not, totally fine. But just let us know. Angie, Eric, any moments that stick out to you guys?
I think being forced to reckon with Danny's disappearance and then resurgence really did a number on me in a way that I was not expecting. And I think my initial thing was like, oh yeah, he made a choice. Like Emory was like, yeah, dead to me. Cool. Great. Just another person who like whatever.
Oh.
Up.
Oh no!
You've just froze for
Because
just,
of
you froze
how
for
we
just a
set up.
second.
Yeah, I caught that. You guys all froze for me. So I was like, oh. But because of like who, you know, it was far enough into the campaign, that was a really fun like exploration of like old Emory versus new Emory, and
Yeah.
like I think Michael being a champion and like really just coming in very committed I was like I gotta you know match the game.
Yeah.
So that whole like trajectory of just everybody's feelings about, you know, Danny and Danny's mental health journey generally,
Yes.
but then also ultimately like how it looks to know that we have this, you know, criteria of you have to like each other.
Yeah.
And how do we get back to that? Like that was a really fun and like I've never played a character that had trouble with that. So that was a fun kind of way for me to figure out some pretty big feelings.
I love that. No, that's great. I could tell in the moment. I was like, this is definitely intense, but in a good way. I mean, I know that we all we all trust each other. We all love each other. We all know it's in character. I already have a couple of great questions in the chat. Before we get to them, Eric, do you have any moments that just kind of stick out to you? That you wanted to talk about?
There's like 3 for some reason that really stick out. 2 of them are like really great performances that have kind of stuck with me. One was Michael at the ball. when you were
Yes.
dealing with
Yes.
your whole adventuring party
That
and then
was
Yes.
talking to your sister. I think I even like messaged you about it, how like great I thought you were.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, Zach too, you were the other half of those
Well, no, but
conversations.
they
That
were
was
fucking
wild.
amazing.
Yeah, those were
conversations,
those were fantastic.
Yeah.
Kelsey, when you were with your brother in the whatever time orb thing,
Yeah.
that made me emotional, which I don't get like
Oh.
ever.
You're
that
It was
crying.
bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
In a great way. In a great way.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic. And the third one was a small moment that for some reason has stuck with me. Is with Kelsey, Angie, and then William, when they were like in the room and they were just like kind of acting like siblings, and it was like
Oh yeah.
Emory doesn't really have a family, and these were like some like treated Aeliana like a sister, and I think Aeliana missed her family and kind of found some brothers and sisters there. So that was a moment that's kind of stuck with me since then.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. Yeah. No, I really. So my favorite scenes every single time were the nights that you guys had in the Ravens headquarters, or the nights that you guys had in the lobby of the House of Balance. You know, the nights where you were, but especially those at the beginning where you were really genuinely trying to get to know each other and see each other.
Trial, the first
and then the
Truth or
Trial, of course. Like, those were great. I got to get to some of these chat questions because they're really good. Matt asked, for all of the players, how has your character changed over the course of the campaign compared to how you thought about them during character creation?
Ooh.
Wow.
So, like, Angie, you kind of touched on that a little bit. Like, there's been some growth there for Emory. But, yeah, everybody. And Angie, also, you can elaborate as well. But, yeah, how has your character changed over the course of the campaign compared to how you thought about them during character creation?
Oliver was going to be more into necromancy.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Just like, it didn't really seem to fit the vibe of the group, so I kind of put that aside. Because it was the whole
Emory
thing.
would've
that
been
kind
like-
of fits. I think that fits with Rowina and Emory pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
Because
honestly.
it's kind of like he is really into machines and making things, and the body is just another, machine.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
That is wild.
Yeah, he was going to be a little bit more into that, which, I mean, I have Animate Dead, but
I could see something that shifts him that
That's
way.
something
I feel
that
like if
Oliver could
someone
still
important
discover,
to him
for
dies,
sure.
I think that
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Still early days.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. What about everybody else? What about you?
I think
And if they haven't really, then that's fine too.
Me? Just to kind of add to what I said earlier, I didn't see Emory becoming as kind of cerebral as they've become.
Yes.
I started, they were going to be like a meat sack at the front, shielding everybody and like getting in and like da-da-da. But I really have been kind of following the like intelligence stat a little bit more, and like the book thing and like the story thing.
Yeah.
Angie was really into reading at that moment. And
I was
so
about
I was
to say,
like, this character loves to read. But then it kind of turned into this thing of like, oh, I know about this because I read about it. I know about this because I read about it. I know. And so it kind of just turned into like a narrative cycle for, a vessel for the screen.
For a lonely kid to have
Yeah.
a lot of time reading about the world.
But not much sense for a rogue, I feel like this has been really fun to figure out this level of intellect, in terms of still having this ability, and like that kind of idea where you've been told and have had an identity your entire life, and then find a group of people who really feed that other side of you. So that Emory has been kind of really engaged in a way that I wasn't expecting in that.
I love that. Anybody else?
I was gonna say just a couple like small things. One is before we started the campaign, there were all kinds of like speculations as to who Rowina's love interest was going to be.
Oh my god.
It was like Rowina and Aeliana was a big one, Rowina and Oliver was a big one, and like none of those have happened.
Oliver was shipped with literally everything.
Yeah.
Everybody that Oliver talked to in the chat was blowing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's
Real.
Danny. Anybody that Danny talks to. Any man that Danny talks to.
Any man that Danny talks to. Swoon.
So that's been kind of funny to like just see kind of where those cards landed. But also I think I thought about Rowina with this kind of, juxtaposition or whatever of like her being so spooky but raised by like, you know, a very maybe kind of. And so I knew there was a little bit of that balance, but I really built Rowena thinking about like aesthetics. Like the whole idea is that she's not mean, but she's spooky as shit. So she's intimidating.
Yeah.
And I think that Rowena has just become a lot kinder and a lot more like, you know, like more of the leader, the speaker of the group more than I would have guessed, because I did build her with this like kind of spooky hard exterior. And so it's been interesting to see how she still is obviously very fucking spooky, but also is like one of the warmest people in the group, which is really interesting.
I'm dying at bees.
She's my sister, but she's mother.
B in the chat just said, my roommate and I also humbly asked for Rowena's hand in marriage so we could be added to that list.
I mean, at this point, I think Rowena needs to just be okay with having multiple partners. Love everyone.
Rowena's hot, okay? Rowena's hot. People like her.
What's hilarious about this thing, and this is how the characters change, like going along with this. I thought Aeliana was way too awkward to fall in love. Like, I did not anticipate any of the romance plot that's happening whatsoever. I actually came in extremely against any shipping. You guys were very hard on the shipping earlier. I
don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean.
And I just kept leaning further into awkward, and it somehow worked. So I was not anticipating that, but to be clear, that was not the plan.
I love it though, because it is such a it's so cool to see the story of Concerned Citizens reflected in this relationship, and kind of how the relationship is handling, you know, being an adventuring party, and like what does that mean, and like and I don't know, it's just it's been very interesting to me, because I think usually the romances that we've had in the past have been mainly, first of all, PC and NPC, which is slightly different. Yeah. There's a different vibe to that. And also, a lot of them have been premeditated. And so to have a romance that was not premeditated, and to have it be between two players, which means it's active at all times, is it's just very interesting, and I'm very much enjoying it and excited to see what happens as we continue through that. Another question that was asked by B is a question that I love. If your character could give one piece of information or advice to their younger self, what would it be?
I mean, I think mine's pretty easy. Like, Rowena would tell herself to, like, play with her magic and experiment and not be afraid of it, because she basically shot herself in the foot by not doing that for years and years and years until it all built up and she killed people in her hometown and had to flee.
Yeah.
So it's pretty basic.
Makes sense. Basic but important.
Basic but important.
Yeah.
So much of me says that it would just be like, don't let her brother go. Like, don't let him go to the, or don't go, or like, I don't know, tell him to be careful or something like that. Because now I'm thinking about that because you mentioned it, but
yeah.
But also probably something more along the lines of what she's learned in this whole journey about, like, anger is okay too, and like these negative emotions have a place in your experience, but they do not define you as bad. I think that's kind of what she's going through, just starting to get to right now. It's like she has this anger for the first time since before, right? This traumatic thing happened, and like having to live with this anger in a way that is very different. It's like, that doesn't make you a bad person. Like, I think she's struggling with this idea of like, well, if I'm angry, then I'm bad. Like, then I'm evil.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something along that line.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it's very similar for Oliver, but just to have him go with the flow more.
Yeah. Not
plan ahead so far, which is he's doing now, but back then he was not.
Yeah. Danny, Emory?
Danny has, I don't know. I mean, going back to like the question that was just asked in terms of like how your character is, like what you didn't expect from playing your character. maybe this is stupid or naive. Danny's sad, and I didn't really realize that when I started out. And then I was like, every week I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
were the one. You were like basically running our icebreakers. Like you were the one that was like, "Hey, we're gonna be something," and then we were like, "Yeah, we're something," and you're like, "Oh no, oh no."
I think I messaged Zach or something like, like a month or two after we started. I think I messaged Zach, and I was like, listen, I don't know why I never thought about like this character that had all this trauma. It's sad.
Yeah,
he's sad.
He's sad. Yeah,
It's sad.
He's that guy. So
some
I don't
could
know.
Say
like,
he's blue.
Hey,
all right, moving on.
Coming after you guys.
That was a good joke that you did.
But yeah, on that note, I don't know if he would really have any advice for his younger self. At least now.
Yeah.
Lay off the drugs.
He's doing fine.
Well, when he was younger, he was fine. That was more of a thing that came after stuff.
His older self would be like, "Hey, you're gonna be offered a berry one time, and you're gonna take it. Don't take it.
No hard drugs after 30.
Yeah. Emory?
I think Emory's the first thing that came to mind was like if I, Emory, now went back to Emory, then it would be something along the lines of like you've had more families than most people. Because I think like just now he's realizing that, you know, he like even though he was at the orphanage, orphan, no family, like the connotation of it, like he still had this group of kids and he still checks in on them, and then he goes to, you know, be on the streets and immediately gets like a role and a job and like is a runner and then becomes part of the Raven. So like he just is going from like family to family to family. So I think that would be something that he would probably have gotten a lot from hearing.
I love that, and I think that's cool for. I wonder if Emory wouldn't think about that. You know, I wonder if Emory notices that.
I think he's starting to.
Yeah. B said something cool in the chat. They said, yes, going back to listen to the earliest episodes, which, by the way, thanks for doing. Danny very much led the way for the friendships to start between the party. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting shift to see how he deals with his emotions now compared to back then. No,
which I think
very cool.
I that was one thing that I do remember, like in my notes writing about why Emory was upset, is because Emory was like, I didn't even need to. I already had the Raven. Like, you guys are the reasons I don't have the Ravens anymore. You did this, you wanted this, and now you're dipping. And I remember being like,
I think you even talked about that with Danny at some point.
I think it came up in my big like.
And I would say arguably,
I worked through it.
Well, yeah, and I would say arguably now Danny and Emory are closer than when
Danny dying was the best thing that he did.
Honestly,
It truly everything. That was when Emory got their head out of their ass. It was like, oh, this is real, and I need to fucking narrative.
Danny dying was legit, and also that I meant to mention that as a moment that stuck out to me. Just the memories and those being what bring him back, and that was cool.
Zach, can I ask you of our characters and of like the what we built at the beginning, like what surprised you most?
Good
Got
question.
Him. Got his ass.
It's my job, man.
I would say, things that surprise me. I would say I kind of agree with you. Rowina becoming so paternal in a way to Emory was something that I didn't expect.
It's a very odd dynamic.
Yeah, and to the party in general, really. Rowina's definitely like...
It's like the moral center of
for sure,
which is kind of awesome.
But I would say Aeliana's right there as well.
Wild that Emily is the moral compass.
Wild.
That's
finally
the pre-stream Emily, CharmedPersons Emily was something else. Okay.
In a good way.
Okay, but also like beginning of actual streaming Emily was also pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I think that that's a prize. I think that Danny's shift was a surprise for me, but also not really. I think it was a surprise to see how it played out, maybe, but not something that I didn't necessarily expect. And to be honest, no, I can't really think. It's hard for me to think of because, like, you know, I was a part of along with you guys, a part of the orchestration of a lot of these changes and stuff like that. So, yeah. But I did have another question for you all, which is there anything that really surprised you in the way that it was handled from your backstory? Like something that you put in your backstory or something that you gave in your backstory that you're just surprised the way it, you know, ended up unfolding, or surprised in how it ran, or anything like that? Mainly asking because I bet it's interesting for the audience to know what you guys came up with and what I came up with. Like how much is you and how much is me?
I thought that Rowina being literally like wanted for murder was going to be a lot bigger deal than it is.
Yeah.
To be honest, like
Oh no.
no.
Oh, there she is.
She's back.
Oh, she's back.
Sorry.
No worries. It happens.
Our names
Gross,
are a
and I
little
was
mixed
like,
up now, but
Zoom
It
decided to
happens.
restart.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And the thing is I kind of expected. I could tell that you expected that. But
like I made a point of like I can't go back for a while. Like
For
I can't
sure.
go my face.
Well, you
and
have to
also,
go
and
back,
you
right?
haven't gone back. And if
Yeah.
you were to go back,
I went back and stayed with Linda
Oh,
for
that's right.
well,
like
Linda does not live in Pineville or in Packard. Linda lives
She
out
lives right on the outskirts of Packrat.
for sure. But
And we
that's-
stayed out of Pack.
exactly.
Or I
You
guess
guys are
I
not
expected
down.
her to reap some consequences of that, or for me to be somebody who is being looked for in nearby
Well,
towns.
for you to be to remind you, she was banished from Packard. She can't go back into the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that you expected that, and to be honest, like this is a different world. Like murder is especially because, as far as they know, you didn't do it. Linda's the one who took responsibility for it.
True.
That was a wild drop.
You know,
Yeah.
you were like kind of like
Yeah.
hiding and running from nothing because nobody was looking for you.
Yeah.
Which was something that I kind of wanted to like throw a twist in, but yeah. Anything else from anybody else?
Go ahead, Angie or Michael.
Michael.
I was, I guess, kind of. I never really anticipated the cavalry being as much of a thing as they were. I actually wasn't that convinced that we would meet them
Yeah.
Ooh.
ever.
Oh gosh.
Well, to be honest, the real reason behind it was because I was really trying to establish a world where adventuring and magic was like rare and not a very big deal, or not. It was a very big deal, and so if there was a group like the cavalry that existed, they would have been widely known. And yeah, it was kind of fun for me to decide. Because I knew two things about the cavalry. I knew that they existed in the world and that people would know about them. And I knew that I couldn't let them stay the way that they were. And so I had to decide a way to knock the cavalry down. And then that's kind of what spurred a whole other story that's still kind of unfolding. So I won't speak much on that.
R.I.P. to Atlas. He was hot.
R.I.P. to Atlas. Atlas was
I
hot.
can animate him.
That's true. You can animate him.
I guess.
Anything else from your backstory? You were about to say something, Eric?
Yeah, that Oliver sold his mom because he wanted to travel. That was shocking to me.
You didn't know you were selling your mom.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that he was maybe like, yeah, which I mean makes sense. He was naive and just like saw this cool item and wanted to see how it works, and he was gonna do whatever he.
Yeah, I think that Oliver probably expected some like prized possession or some like but definitely
Or just
not
that he was
his-
full of shit. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, or that he was full of shit, and yeah. Anything else from anybody?
I think just having a backstory.
Yeah.
I basically told Zach, I was like, I don't know, I literally don't know where I came from. I've just always been in the orphanage. And so like every twist of having like, oh, this dad who's up to something, oh, this sister who is like now my friend, and like the kind of inevitability of it. Yeah, like what is my role in the Cavaxian Empire? And now we're kind of getting into this little bit of like, this like there's some faded stuff happening.
I was just about to touch on that. I was just about to touch on that because I did want to. Yeah, well, no, I do kind of want you to stop because I did want to say, just as we were kind of like starting to wrap up here, that I was impressed with Michael, and obviously I think everybody was starting to notice that, and I think it was pretty obvious at first, but a lot of these backstories connect. And there's a lot of tie-in with each other, and there's a lot of events that are unfolding that is like, this specific 5 is together. Why is that? What is that? And all I will say is that there is a reason, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
What? There's a reason?
What?
Damn.
Yeah. Before I'll ask you one more question, but before we do that, I did reach out to JMO, our one guest so far of Campaign 3. And I asked her some questions, and she gave me some answers. Thank goodness. I said, the first question was, what expectations did you have coming into your spot in C3? She said, since I hadn't watched any of the Campaign 3 streams yet, fake fan, I didn't have many expectations for the main group or story. I guess that Jay would be asked to play this world's truth or dare, which is true. And I think I expected a bit more suspicion towards Jay to have to RP. I also definitely thought Jay would have died. I said the next question was, what made you want to be the villain or perform the betrayal that you did perform? She said, I know that all of our guest stars had a level of immediate trust added to the group, and I wanted to shake that up a bit. There has to be a level of trust or acceptance, of course, just as a part of adding a player to this group. So when that's a given, it makes for a more compelling portrayal. Plus, I thought it would be fun. Purple devil emoji. I then said, any moments that stood out to you or defied your expectations, or both? She said, I really enjoyed going into the sessions dark with what the Concerned Citizens had been up to. And listen to this next part, not you guys, but your characters. Make sure your character brains are on and listening to this next part. It made for a great back and forth, and also, I think, allowed the main group to step back and truly realize all they had accomplished and all the crazy that they still had going on. And then lastly, I said, any final thoughts? And she said, and I completely agree with this, and it's something that we haven't touched on yet, but I completely agree with it. Having watched the last couple episodes, I love how the group, especially Emory, is dealing with the fuzziness of what makes someone good and bad. It's always fun to see your little bit of a story have a lasting impact. It was a blast to play Jay, and since she surprisingly didn't die, I hope she gets her redemption return. So we shall see.
Let her that dog first.
We shall see. But yeah, I also wanted to talk about that briefly and talk about how I'm also very much enjoying that seems to be the beginnings of kind of a subplot line in Arc 2. And that subplot line being what is good and what is bad, and is it most likely something in between. We have that with Jay, we have that with Damien currently, we have that with the entire war between Cavaxian Empire and the Savian Dynasty. Like, who really is at fault for this, and what does that mean? And I am excited to explore the concept of morality in Arc 2.
I feel like in some way that's something like personally Rowina has been dealing with herself since the very beginning. So it's interesting to see that same moral conundrum spread out to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go one by one here as we wrap up. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I would like you to answer. One is, are there any final thoughts that you have for what's happened so far in Campaign 3? And then part 2 of the question is, what are you excited to explore more of in the future? What are you excited to come, or what you think is to come. So let's go in reverse order this time. So Angie, any final thoughts on what's happened so far, and what are you excited about moving forward?
I think the thing that I have enjoyed the most, that I keep wanting to continue, because I know that, you know, as you level up and things are added and added and added, there is this kind of desire to speed up and this desire to like blast through things. And I have really enjoyed, I mean, like we'll be on episode 32, and that's like where we're at level wise is much lower than where we've ever been at this amount of episodes in any other campaign, and I'm loving that. It's like, it's been so nice to be able to explore the world a bit more. That's something that I always want to do, and what I like about these big grandiose campaigns from like, you know, Critical Role or Dimension 20 or any other streamers is like when you get to feel as though you also know the world. And so I'm excited and looking forward to, despite all of the things that is happening, continuing to like get to go to these towns and go to these cities. And like, I think that was one thing that I loved doing whenever y'all were in Darioch, is I was like, this is a place that Emory knows. We're going to go get fucking custard. Yes. I'm going to show you a restaurant. Like, I'm going to name these like places that bring this settled nature to this. And I hope that we keep doing that wherever we go. Like, I want to be a tourist. Like, I want to be a tourist in this world.
I love that.
What was the
awesome.
Second part? Did I get
and then what are you looking forward to? Which is I think what you said, just exploring the world more.
Yeah. What was the first part then? Did I miss something?
What you've loved about it, which has been the slow burn and
it's all of it. Yeah.
You nailed it.
I just like
it.
Answer the questions.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Kelsey, same questions to you.
Oh my gosh, I've loved all of it. I think this has been great. I think how much time we get to spend together as a group is great. Like, I think it kind of echoes what Angie said. It's like this going slow, this building on things very naturally, and having a lot of time to just sit in moments has been really, really great, because you guys are all very smart and creative people and give me so many ideas to be a smarter, more creative version of myself. So it's been really fun to tell this story with you guys. I think what I'm excited for is, I feel like there's something that I haven't put together. Like, there are pieces that are there, and I'm like, there's something I can't put my finger on, so I'm excited to see what that is. There's something more. It's not just the drag. Like, there's something else.
Okay.
I can sense it.
All right.
And I want to know what it is.
No comment. Eric.
We're playing for 3 hours after this, so it's okay.
I think it's interesting that spoiler alert, my backstory stuff is more or less solved, kind of. All the big stuff. We found his mom is fine. So I think finding out who Oliver is going forward, and kind of exploring outside of the backstory that I came up with about who he is in this world more. Now that I'm not constantly trying to save my mom, who am I?
I love that.
Right now,
I'm also excited about that. Yeah. Emily.
I think similar to what Angie said, like, a lot of the time when we get to session 30, past session 30, it's like, okay, a few more things to wrap up. We're near the end. Like, it sort of feels like it would make sense for things to end, but I feel like we're just at the beginning. And I think it's even more interesting that, like Eric said, like, a lot of our backstory stuff is kind of wrapped up, or at least has been, acknowledged, and we're like on the path to figuring it out. So I'm really interested to see how these relationships continue to progress, and how, now that we have touched on everybody's backstory in a way, how our story becomes our story and not the story of all of us trying to solve everybody's individual shit.
Yeah, I will say,
yes,
I'm glad that that's been kind of noticed, because that has been a conscious decision, is to kind of front load backstory towards the front of. I mean, everybody still has some stuff open. There's the Blood of Luna. There's there's still quite a bit of. There's something within all of your backstories that is always going to be prevalent. But I also wanted to kind of have. I mean, it hasn't been quick, it's been 30 sessions, but a relatively front-loaded backstory campaign so that we can see what these people are like when they choose to be together and are together, and this is our story now, and what does that mean? And I think that's awesome, and I'm very excited to explore that as well. Kelsey, last but not least, final thoughts / what are you looking forward to? No, you already answered, so
I already went.
By that I meant Michael.
Wow.
Kelsey's in the position that it would be on Zoom.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
totally.
On stream. My bad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what I really love about this campaign is that, we've kind of touched on it. It feels like a lived-in world. I think also having a smaller party size has really allowed for moments to sit and have character development and be really first and foremost without it dragging along. The tempo of the story has felt really, really good to me, and that's a huge credit to you, Zach, and your world building, which I think has been absolutely incredible this campaign.
Thank you.
And then what I'm looking forward to, we actually didn't really touch on it in this, but because in the first arc, Danny's whole thing was kind of defining himself by other people and what his relationships were, and the whole again, we didn't really touch on it, but the whole triangle situation between Danny, Oliver, and Aeliana, which has been sad for Danny but great for me.
I love that.
I'm interested in where, especially after the 6 months, which we haven't even really touched on, of what Danny was up to while he was alone.
Clock Tower. Excuse me?
There are some other groups that were mentioned that we have not.
Like I said, everybody has some stuff remaining in their
Two
backstory.
groups that I was messaging. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Do I know this? Am I missing this?
But just figuring out, Danny mentioned this in his letter that he dropped off to you all, but who is he by himself? And now he's kind of in a phase where he feels almost I don't want to say a parent, but he kind of feels like the big brother of the group, of making sure that people are on the right, whatever he deems right track. And now he just is kind of the one that is trying to keep things together, while his kind of heightened phase maybe seems to be winding down, while Aeliana is having her trauma investigated and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to coming up.
I've loved this campaign. It's been awesome. I learn something new every time I DM a long campaign. I'm proud of a lot of what has happened, and a huge shout out and testament to you guys for just being awesome players, and being willing to go with everything, and trusting me at times, and it's been great. I love CharmedPersons because of the stories that we can tell, and I think Campaign 3 is a true what's the word I'm looking for? I guess
the best thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah, it's the best thing.
It's special. It feels like a special campaign.
It does.
I know you're married, but this is better, right?
Yeah, I'm part of this, so I'll take it.
Hey, that's marriage.
Everyone just now finding out that Emily and I are married.
What?
I don't think that's true.
But thank you all so much. Thank you to those in the chat. Thank you for your questions.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. I'm very excited for us in 8 days to jump into the next Campaign 3 session. It's gonna be a spooky one. So tune in for that. It's gonna be at night.
Yep.
And spooky. Oh,
I want it now.
I was too honest, so I'm scared.
So thank you all so much. Thank you to players, the best players a GM can ask for. I do say it every time, but I mean it every time. And as always, everybody say bye.
Bye. Bye.